Can you see this?
It's not appeared on YouTube yet. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
There we go. Live now.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
You can see this?
Alright.
Good.
Can see that. Brilliant.
Very good. And everybody can hear us?
Everyone can hear? Send emojis if you can hear.
Yeah. Sorry about the delay.
Yes,
people.
Everyone is saying yes, yes.
Cool.
Brilliant.
So, let's start the show.
Absolutely. Alright, thanks for joining us, everyone. It's really exciting to have Nico here to do a live stream. I know you've all been waiting for this since we announced it.
It is kick-ass to be here. I'm in Tasmania, Australia, Hobart, at the Procreate offices. Alright, today I'm gonna draw a character, and since I'm from Norway, what better choice than a Viking, right? And I'm gonna show some tools as well, like the 4.2 tools, the new stuff, while I'm drawing here. So just gonna really quickly just trying to get a pose on the character. So I'm always really loose. I try to be at least always really loose in the beginning of a painting. And I use both the brush and the eraser to kind of sculpt in and out of a character. And I have my quick menu set up like this, so if anybody's curious. So I have my two favorite brushes over here: erase, paint, flip horizontally, and then alpha lock. So that's my setup.
Put on some music in the background here.
Oh.
Of course, it's going to be the YouTube audio library, because last time we used Spotify and we couldn't save the video to YouTube because we didn't have the rights to use that music.
Ooh. Nice painting music.
Seems it's the happy music YouTube audio library playlist. Oh, it doesn't.
It was happy for a while at least.
Oh, and it's happy again.
So I'm just sort of just mocking about here.
Everyone is saying hi.
Hi. It's cool that you're watching this, people. It's my first live demo like this.
It's your first live stream.
Live stream, exactly.
Wow. Here we go.
Had to be here.
Of course.
So I want to draw a Viking, but I'm not, even if I'm Norwegian, I'm not into like Vikings that much, so I'm not gonna be, how should I say, worried about being like correct armor for this or that period, or so it's gonna be more like just a stereotype Viking maybe.
The one we see in pop culture everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put big horns on his helmet as
Well, I'm not gonna do that because that's like the beginner's failure thing. Yeah.
No.
Vikings didn't have the horns on the helmets. I know that much. Even though it looks kind of badass.
I think it might have been in Poland for Promised Land this year.
Yeah.
Evan was doing a talk or something, and he had a little bit of a rant about Vikings.
Yeah.
And armor and all of that.
If Evan is watching this, he's gonna pick it apart, but because he knows what he's doing when it comes to like armor or shields and that kind of stuff, costume and time, if it's correctly time-wise.
Spends a lot of time researching that stuff.
Yeah. So I'm using the warp tool now, which is amazing. So I'm gonna, it's just nice to, in the beginning of a sketch, just to pose around, you know, just to try different sort of weight, and also to flip it, kind of like just to see it from both sides. It's important to do that in the beginning. I'm also flipping the canvas often, so just starting to get a pose here. And if the pose isn't sort of believable, then there's no point continuing. I need to kind of get that working in the beginning and then to build on top of that.
So how long have you been drawing for, Nico?
Well, since I was a kid, I remember when I was around 7, 8, till 10, that's when I kind of really got into it. I started at the Steiner school, and apart from having a crazy teacher that didn't teach us anything but drawing.
Oh, that's good.
That was good for me, but he was a nutcase. But I kind of got a good start in case of drawing, and I had to have extra class just to catch up with regular other pupils from regular schools.
Oh, really?
But I had an advantage when it came to drawing, so that was good. So let me see. Okay, I wanna liquefy a bit. Like liquefy and warp, these two together is just such a power couple. Just to move stuff about, just to see like kind of what can be better. And it's still kind of early in the sketch, you know. I might even throw this away and start over again at this point. It's important not to be too, you know, to fall in love with your stuff too early. It's important to, you know, throw it away if it's not worth, if you see that it's not going anywhere.
Me personally, I don't like any of my artwork until it's finished. I mean, this constant cycle of no, it's bad, and then I finish it and I'm like, I love it. Yes.
Yeah, let's get these legs removed. Not feeling it here.
You're using the Nico Roll brush there?
It's not the Nico Roll, but it's an evolved one. It's very similar to the Nico Roll. It's kind of the same principle. It's if I go to, is it under painting? Yeah. So this is the Nico Roll. And the one I'm using looks like this. So it's very similar, just but it has bleed in the texture.
Okay. So is it just a customized version of the default Nico Roll, or is it completely remade?
It is completely remade.
Ooh.
But if you check out my tutorials on Gumroad, all my tutorials come with the brushes I used in the tutorials, and the Nico Roll I think is in, not the Nico Roll, the new roll is kind of in all of them. So it's, yeah, looks like his naked legs here. That's, you kind of have to think a bit like that I draw a bit more, you can call it anatomy if you want, and just to see how stuff looks underneath first to a certain degree, and then I can add costume later. But it's important to kind of get the pose and the legs right. I think this is looking better than before.
So I know that a lot of our users online have trouble with anatomy.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips and tricks for people starting out drawing correct anatomy?
Well, draw from references, you know. Do live drawing, draw from photos, draw your friends. Just keep on drawing people. I think that's pretty much the only way of getting better at it. And I don't think you necessarily need to draw muscle sculpts and a ton of it. It depends. Like if you're gonna be really good at sort of the naked anatomy, then yes. If you're gonna mainly draw people in costumes and clothing, then you need to know how that's gonna look. And it's just like the drapery, how fabric falls and folds on characters. It's important to, you know, study and have references. So.
Speaking of references, someone here says, do you use references for composition, colors, or anything else that helps with your inspiration?
Yeah, I use not so much for well, yeah, anything actually. I usually create like a gather, like a mood board of different stuff. If I'm doing like client work, for example, let's say I'm gonna have to draw a Viking, and then I will do some research on Vikings to know what it looks like. And I may not use all of that or copy it directly, but it's always nice to be a bit inspired by something and not just start out. And the more you draw something, the more comfort zone it becomes, you know. So it's if somebody asks me to draw like a cityscape of some sort, I may not use so much reference, or just like a creature, or, you know, stuff that I've drawn many times. I may not use so much reference, but then again, if it's stuff I've been drawing before, I also probably have reference from before, which I just reuse again.
Yeah.
And that's always nice. Like, always save your references. So, because I keep coming back to the same sort of mood boards over and over again, and I'm very happy to have like a huge library of all kinds of reference now.
So this next one is from Justin, and it kind of ties in, I guess, to what we just talked about there with references and stuff, but he says he's constantly blown away by your composition, mostly backgrounds and scenes. What would you recommend for someone starting out? So would you say that collecting a big library of kind of background scenes and that sort of stuff and working from those is the way to go with that?
Yeah, like when I'm always when I'm creating a scene, even if it's an environment, I almost always start with the perspective, even if it's going to be like a forest and you don't really see necessarily like perspective lines. I still, to me, the perspective is more like a camera, a lens and a position, rather than the lines itself. So to me, the perspective lines are more like a 3D grid that shows me which point of view I'm seeing things in.
Yeah.
And that really helps me. And I'm taking kind of my time to set up the perspective, because that is kind of like when you set up the perspective, that's the camera man walking around thinking about where he wants to see the scene from, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking much more like a cameraman than a person walking around, because you have your square, you have your canvas. So it's I think it's more relevant to think camera than just walking around. And of course the midground, background, foreground. Keep a close eye on your values. The values are super important, more important than color. So that's why I also often draw my stuff in value first and then add color later. It's cool to do both, to both start out in color, but then also start out just in value, but I mostly start out in just value.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to focus on more than your composition. And I, like now, I'm not really focusing on anything else than the pose and the character. The lighting and the colors, that comes later. It doesn't need to come, you don't need to like finish value and then to go over to the next phase. You can always jump over to color and then you can still change the composition. So I never sort of just, okay, I left composition now, I'm not gonna come back and repost the character. So I always keep every door open so that I'm not, that I always have the possibility to make any part of the painting better. I think he's gonna have like a fox fur hanging around his neck.
Ooh, nice.
So here's the...
So would you recommend to people starting out to really work on learning their values for bases of pieces, or?
Yeah. Get good at values. Keep your drawing small, like keep your... not ridiculously small, but I often start out maybe like the size of like the iPhone screen maybe, and then or a telephone screen, and then as long as I can, I'll keep seeing the whole character. I don't want to zoom in like this anytime soon. I want to sort of finish this phase, this part of it, before I start zooming in, because at the second you start to zoom in, you're gonna spend much more time. Like then time is gonna fly, and you feel like you get nowhere, and then it's just detail, So it's kind of like you get 90% of the way in 10% of the time, and then the last 10% of just detail will take 90% of the time.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I hope I said that correctly, because it's it's like a brain thingy.
Is it hard to talk about what you're doing or explain things while you're drawing?
Not really. I'm a bit used to it. Like a good thing with drawing, and like if I'm reading or listening to something and then reading at the same time, that's impossible. But to draw is okay, because it's not really entering the same part of the brain. It's kind of separated. So sometimes I have to stop a little just to think, not to lose the thread my brain was starting on.
Sanart Studio says this already looks superb.
Thank you. Well, the thumbnail part of it is kind of coming together.
Looks really good on YouTube.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Glad to hear that. And I'm glad the technical part worked eventually.
Yeah, finally. Yes, Vin, the clicky noise that you might be hearing is most likely the Apple Pencil on the glass of the iPad. Sorry about that, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, because the microphone is on this iPad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're curious, it's the brand new iPad and brand new Apple Pencil, and it's very nice. Just the way you charge it and the way it like clicks to the iPad, I love that.
Yeah, I think the big selling point for me was definitely the Apple Pencil charging.
Yeah.
And the double tap on the pencil. I really love that.
Yeah, and you don't lose that. There's no nib to lose, like the cap on the back side.
You don't lose it while you're charging the pencil.
And the pencil itself, it's a bit more matte in the surface. It's not so slippery. or and it doesn't roll because it has a flat side. I know that the other pencil is weighted a bit, so it's not gonna roll too far, but it's still gonna roll. So it's starting to take shape sketch-wise, I think. So this is usually the point where I'm gonna get a silhouette going behind the character now, because it's a lot of transparency still in the character. All the bright areas are still just transparent, and I want to be able to control the silhouette. Silhouette is super important. Like this, if the silhouette is weak, there's no point continuing. Like your silhouette needs to read well. It's one of the most important things. So I on purpose made him stand with his legs apart, for example. Like that reads better than if he's standing like with his legs stuck together. And also his hand holding the axe gives that little negative space underneath, so you see some air coming in there. So it's small choices like that. Like the fox head is on the side of him that it silhouettes to the background, not on the side where it silhouettes against him. But that would also be okay as long as you, because inside a character you also have a lot of silhouettes, like on his helmet, for example. It's rough still, but the nose protection part of the helmet, that silhouette's very good against his face. So internally in your design, the silhouette needs to read as well. So silhouette. Importante.
Ian asks, do you personally, Nico, what functions do you have programmed for the double tap on the pencil?
I have now put drawing assist on it.
Oh, nice.
Because I was fighting for, like, where alpha lock is, I usually set drawing assist if it's like a perspective drawing.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to also have alpha lock somewhere, but yeah, but since I could put drawing assist on the double tap, I think that works pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do the silhouette thingy on this character, and you can always go back to change that. It's not something that's like written in stone. Just wanted to, not sure if the fox looks like a fox or if it looks like a cat. Or
I think it's dog-like.
It's a little foxy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I take the selection tool, set it to automatic. This is kind of what I also did on the small tutorial yesterday. So I select everything around the character now, and I make sure it doesn't eat its way into the character. And here you can also see problem areas where if you have big holes, you might have to patch them first. So what I'm selecting now is outside the character, and also that little area between the X and the hand and the character. Because it's just much easier selecting everything else and then inverting it like this. So I'm gonna make a new layer now, put it under my character, go a bit brighter on the value, and then fill that color. And I'm gonna darken my sketch a bit. So now it's much more a silhouette. And if I turn off my drawing now and you just see the silhouette, that's where you want to see that it's working or not.
Oh, nice.
So if you can kind of read the silhouette here, then your silhouette is strong. One little trick that I always use though is that because I used automatic selection, you see when I'm zooming in, it's really like a rock hard selection. which is a bit, you know, I want to soften that just a tad. Because if you look like if I turn this off on just a sketch, you see there's a transition called anti-aliasing, which happens naturally when you use brushes, but or a freehand selection. But with auto select, it's really going pixel by pixel. So what I do is I use Gaussian blur, and I blur it 4%. Or 3.9, or, you know, around 4%. So then you kind of get that, it's kind of like faking anti-aliasing. So it's still sharp, but it's not rock hard, you know, it goes better together with the natural anti-aliasing of the drawing.
That's a really good tip.
Good tip. And then I alpha lock both layers, both the sketch and the silhouette. So now I'm gonna grab my airbrush and then just brighten it a bit on top here.
And these are all your personal brushes that you're using?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have a ton of different brushes, and I love making them. I think it's so much fun. But sometimes I make a brush just for one use, which is helpful there and then and save me lots of time. And then I may never use it again. But the power of making your own brushes in Procreate is just insane. So you want to, yeah, you want to learn how to make your own brushes. And I'm gonna do a little. I'm going to the sketch layer now, just to also paint that a little. I'm brightening it a little on some areas and then darken it a little other areas. Just to, like, the stuff that's further away on the character is a bit more hazed out, just to give depth to the painting. And I want to show you guys some new cool tools. You've seen warp and liquefy, and I'm gonna make a shield now. So in a new layer, maybe I'll just tone down the character a bit so it's not. I'm just putting down the opacity on the layers. So I want to have a shield for him, and if I draw a circle and keep it there, it will snap into, this is the new quick shape. If I put my finger down, it will snap into a perfect circle, which is awesome. And if you still want to edit it up on top in the middle, you can click edit shape and you can still mess around with it. So, awesome tool. And so let's see here. I want to have kind of like a little rougher surface also in there. So this is more like a stripy brush that I'm using right now. Just want to give that some detail, and then maybe another circle. Which I want to move a little. And yeah, one more. This would be really difficult to just do by hand, or impossible, I would say.
I think a lot of our users before QuickShape, they either had the shape stamp brushes, or I saw YouTube videos of people who actually had physical stencils that they put on the screen and then traced around them.
Yeah.
Procreate.
That's cool.
It was really funny.
Yeah, I have brushes with, you know, shapes. Like here's my old circle. I don't use them anymore, but you know, you always, that's the good thing about the brushes in Procreate too. It's easy to improvise. Okay, so I have kind of the shield here, but I also want to put some symmetry stuff on it.
Just on a side note, we've got someone here who says, "Is Nico currently looking to adopt? Please."
Haha. Sorry, no. Thank you for asking, but okay, let's see. And I'm gonna grab a new layer because I want to do some play with some symmetry. Let me just show you one more thing here, which you may not know about. Let's say that I take my rule brush and here you see the shape source. And if I want that shape source to kind of go in a circle around the shield, but I want them to be further apart, I can draw, let's see if I'm in the correct layer. Let's just use a new layer. I can draw a small circle and then drag it out. And you see what's happening now? Every shape that spawned is pulled apart. So that's also a way of, like, if you do a quick line like this, you can pull these apart until you see individual shapes. You couldn't do that before. But that's actually really helpful. You might have to adjust maybe the spacing of it a bit, but you know, if you draw a tiny circle and you can really pull this out like this, for example. The really small dots, maybe it's a bit too sci-fi for this one, but it's a nifty little trick anyway. Okay, let's do some symmetry. So I get into Canvas, turn on Drawing Guide, edit Drawing Guide, Symmetry, and I want to have the quadrant. And then I just place this, the middle in the middle of the shield, the center. You can also angle it if you want. Maybe we'll do this. Done. And now on a new layer, I can paint anything. Well, actually I will go for not the quadrant, but the radial blur. No, not blur, symmetry, sorry. Yeah, that's better. Just to have some like Viking ornament stuff. Could be that we have to push this a bit, like to work this after on, but it's really helpful. I don't want to go totally crazy here, but because Viking shields were usually pretty, you know, not so detailed. But it's too much fun doing symmetry, so it has a tendency to become very detailed.
Sometimes you gotta have some fun with that, right?
Exactly. So I'm transforming this. Sorry?
Artistic license.
Yes. I'm just transforming it a bit more to the center compared to the outer parts of the shield, and then I can warp the center of the symmetry where it should be. So let's keep it like that. Just gonna merge these shield layers together. Then I'm gonna make a new layer, put it underneath. I can turn off my symmetry guide, and I want to make a selection. Again, a selection of the shield. Same like the character, select on the outside. with automatic, then invert, then fill this in on a layer underneath. Do my Gaussian blur 4% just to break the edges a bit. Alpha lock. And what we can do now is we can set this, the silhouette here, we can group these two so they're part of the same group. And let's get opacity up again on the character. And just lighten that. Darken the sketches of the shield and alpha lock that one as well. And just a little gradient on the shield, just as a start. And we need to place it. So I'm just selecting the whole group here now. You can select both layers like this as well, but as long as they're in the same group, then you can transform easily both layers at the same time. I want to push this a bit into perspective, because it's kind of like holding the shield in a little sideways. Just figuring out the best position for it. Maybe that's alright. And just to, I think a lot of the Viking shields were very flat. But since this is my drawing and not the real Viking, I want to use warp and then just pull the center out a little, so it's a bit more, looks a bit more three-dimensional, a bit more like a deep, like a plate. How would you say? Concave or convex? I don't know, like a huge concave. Concave. I think we'll have it here. Is it too small, too big? I don't know. I think we'll put it there for now. Actually. Yeah. And maybe I would just like to transform the sketch part a little off, just to get that edge of the silhouette part stick out on one side. So it even gives a bit more like a 3D feel. Alright. Maybe we should get some color on this one. Just gonna go to my silhouette layer back here and open up the alpha. I want to work a bit more because I feel it's a bit too round here. Like the silhouette of the fur kind of grows into the shield. So I just use a selection tool here now just to get a bit more detail, fur detail sticking out here. Maybe even some stuff at the bottom there as well. Just to break it up a little. It's nice with this jolly music in the background.
I was about to say, I'm actually really enjoying the music playlist.
It's not very Viking-ish, but I think if, the Vikings were in a storm on the sea in their Viking boats, this music would be soothing and calming them down a bit.
Oh yeah, imagine.
Yeah. Not sure they had this, but I'm gonna draw some rope or something here. So if he loses his axe, it's tied to his body. Oh, it's a bit, I want to work on that. Maybe like that. Not sure how smart that is, because when he tries to lift the axe, it's actually stuck to his garment, but...
Well, I was going to say, like, what if he accidentally dropped it in battle and it kind of like swung down and cut into his leg?
Well, then the next time he's in battle, he's not going to do this.
He's not going to make that mistake again.
Yeah, so this is Harold, the guy who tried different things but ended up losing limbs. So other Vikings shouldn't do the same. Yeah. Just to make the... If you looked at some other of my artwork, you know that I love cords and wires and stuff hanging down. So I'm gonna have to sneak that into the Viking world here a little. Another fantastic new tool in 4.2 update is the clipping masks. And if you don't know what that is, I'm going to show you right now.
Clipping masks is so exciting.
Yes. So let's say here's the sketch of the character and here's the silhouette. So I tap the sketch and I set it to clipping masks. So you see the little arrow pointing down at this layer, which means if I open up alpha on this layer, anything I paint in here now, just going to grab a color, will just stay within. So you see it's, if I turn off clipping mask, it's outside, but you turn on clipping masks and it's only showing what's inside the layer content of the layer underneath. So you don't have to burn a layer using the regular mask, and you can keep on putting new layers on top here in clipping mask, which is fantastic. So I can add like a new layer on top here and then clipping mask. Then this will, as long as this one is pointing to layer 3, let's call it, then this one will as well keep within the same silhouette.
I think that's the main difference with clipping mask, guys, for all of those who ask quite regularly. The clipping mask actually retains all of the information on that clipping layer. It's just that it only shows the part of that layer that's within the base layer that it's clipped to. So if you went and made changes to the base layer afterwards, if there was any marks on the canvas in the clipping layers above it, those would also start to show through. Different to Alpha Lock, because Alpha Lock only paints within that shape of the layer that you're Alpha Locked. So it's really helpful. A lot of illustrators use it, especially. I think that was the main group of people who use Procreate who were just losing their minds when we released it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And you can also, if I, let's say that I take the shield here and I make that a clipping mask to the silhouette of the shield, you can also transform that layer and still be within the silhouette, you know, which is really cool. If you have like cool textures you want to put in perspective, but you want it to be within the shield. So I'm gonna start knocking this into color pretty damn soon.
We have a little bit of an off-topic question here.
Shoot.
Obviously in English, like for native English speakers, we say Viking with a hard V.
Yeah.
So is the way that you pronounce Viking, is that technically the right way to pronounce it?
Viking is the Norwegian way.
There we go, guys.
Yeah. Viking. Alrighty, let's get some color on this mister. So when I color, I almost always start with and I'm gonna take the background down to neutral gray actually, because this will give us an advantage. I usually start with a layer that sort of covers the most. I'm just gonna darken this layer a tad. Sketch layer. So I'll take the layer underneath here. There's like the main character, silhouette. And I'm gonna use curves to start my coloring. So with curves you can go into each channel and push around, and you have control over the darks and the brights separately. So if you don't know curves, you should check it out, because it has a lot of power. And I love curves. This is becoming a bit too green. But another cool thing, let's say that I push it too green, and I don't exactly want it green, but now it's at least has a color. See how I lift up the red in the mid tones here now? That's kind of cool. So you can always, if you add a color, you can always go to hue, saturation, brightness, and then switch around which color combination you want. So that's that could be like a good step number 2, or how saturated it's supposed to be.
That's so cool.
And then I take the next layer, which is the sketch that I started on. I go into curves again. So I push it a bit towards red, and I want a bit towards yellow, and I want this, maybe the darkest ones slightly towards blue. Just like a subtle push against color. And here I can also go darker with it if I want to. And let's do the same with the shield. Not totally sure which color I would like that to be yet. Maybe a little. I think I will paint some color on the shield. Just gonna, for now, kind of put it into the same bit similar palette as the rest of the guy, just so it feels like it's the same universe. And then the same with the sketch. Something like this. So now it's at least the beginning of it feels a bit more like a drawing now, a painting. And now another step that I usually take after the curves is that I already have like a clipped layer there on top of my character. I can put this into color mode. And color mode is great for keeping your values, but testing out different colors. So if I just paint over the whole thing, you see that it turns into that color, but it's maintaining value. And also with airbrush, you can kind of like push. I kind of want like a moonlit type of light coming in on the side there, kind of like a cold light on one side, and then warmer light on his like lower screen, lower right now. Any more questions, Georgie?
Yes. Questions. From all the work you've done in Procreate, which one is your favorite piece?
Often it's a new one because it's fresher and I'm kind of not so used to it. Like the The Geisha Ghost is one of my recent ones.
Yeah, that one was lovely.
So I enjoyed that one, and I was happy with how it ended up looking. But also Scooter Trouble has a good place in my heart.
Special place in our heart too. That's on one of our big windows at the front of our offices, guys.
Yeah.
Scooter Trouble.
And I did that for you guys, you know, and that was a commission. Because I already did 2 drawings which had the same theme.
Yeah, you have like boat trouble and
Car Trouble.
yeah.
Yeah. And you originally asked me if I could make Boat Trouble in a different format. But then I much rather do a new one, and that became Scooter Trouble. And that was also kind of like my 3rd attempt at that, at the same kind of idea. Somebody having trouble with their vehicle. And I think that was the best one of the 3. Also the one that took the most time.
Yeah, it's got a lot of detail in it, that one.
Yeah.
Great sense of urgency to it though, with the big robot claw coming in over the top.
Yeah.
Oh god! Does he get away in the end? This is the question.
Well, that's a secret.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that to the grave. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, just putting in some slight different colors here. And you know, the curves and the color layer is good, but it's not gonna finish because I can't work on the different values now. So this is the point where I'm squeezing these layers together into one layer. I like to have to merge at a certain point. And I'm just gonna grab some of these values. Oh, I'm on symmetry now. Symmetry off.
So on those commission pieces, how long does it roughly take you to finish one? Do you even have a rough amount of time? Or
when I generally do concept art, I say that it takes between 1 and 2 work days.
Yeah, okay.
So that's pretty much the time I spend on any piece. If it's a detailed one. Sketches are quicker, of course, but sorry. But yeah. It's very seldom that I spend more than 2 work days. I think the Scooter Trouble I spent a little more than 2 work days, but it has to be detailed stuff like that to sort of be more than 2 work days.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take another round with curves now because I feel it's coming together in a way, but now that I have the elements put together, I also want to just try out to push it a little in a certain direction just to see. Maybe I will undo it, but it's always nice to just check out. Or if you want to have more, more contrast, for example.
So while you're using that tool, someone here asks that they're curious, what are the advantages to using curves, adding colors versus just airbrushing or painting with clipping or alpha?
Because you can adjust every little channel here. It's just to to make an overall change to your painting. It's not really to finish color, but it's more like a grading that you're pushing it. My throat is sorry for, I don't know what it's called when you're clearing your throat, but I'm sorry for
clearing your throat.
Okay.
Yeah.
We call it kremte in Norwegian.
It has a word in Norwegian?
Yeah.
Wow.
Kremte. Yeah, so it's an overall more grading and contrast, and you can work on. If I go up with the darks and down with the brights, you see the contrast gets really narrow, and you can undo every step here. If you're a Photoshop user and you can see that I'm actually undoing small steps in curves, you're gonna stop using Photoshop and come to your senses and start using the only tool that you need. Procreate. If you haven't understood it yet, I love Procreate. I'm Procreate's biggest fan.
Yeah, I think Nico is definitely our biggest fan. Which is fantastic because we are Nico's biggest fan.
Oh, it's very mutual love.
It is a mutual love.
Let me get... that kind of looks better.
Do you prefer drawing on the iPad over paper?
Yeah. The only time I draw on paper is with my kids. My two boys.
Do they do a lot of drawing?
Yeah, they like it. They like my wife Sandra. She's also an illustrator. She works as a storyboard artist mainly. I'm using an overlay brush now, by the way, if you're wondering, just to get that nice warm light. And so both kids are growing up with parents that are both painters. So I've been scared to I don't want to force it on them in any way, so I've been kind of just letting them discover it on their own. Okay, I made a new layer here now over my Viking, and I'm gonna make it a clip mask, so and this is gonna be my highlights. I think I'm even gonna put this layer into add mode. So we're gonna take like a fairly bright, nice blue color. I can always change this though, just to get some nice highlights.
Not to add pressure to your kids when you've just specifically said you're not trying to force them in any one way, but someone here has just said, good, 2 future Nicos.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, I would love if they would, choose to follow their parents in a certain way, but I'm also not gonna, I think it's better if they kind of figure it out on their own. And to be supportive if they want to, and supportive regardless what they want to do, of course, but I think that since it is so much drawing at home, it's gonna either fall naturally or they're gonna hate it and become lawyers instead.
Yeah, I think if you're in that environment when you're seeing something so often,
yeah,
you either go one way or the other, really, don't you?
Exactly. So just putting in some highlights here and there. It's very tempting to put highlights everywhere because it's very effective. This is why I put the gray background, by the way. So if I turn the background white again, you're not really gonna get that same sort of, nice bright. It's kind of cool on black as well. But if you keep your background neutral gray, then you can go both directions, which is cool. I'm gonna put in some of these blues here, and then I'm gonna merge. I usually merge whenever I'm happy with a certain point on a layer, because I like to keep my layers tidy. I don't want to have a ton of layers, but I also need to be happy with it before I merge.
Do you have a rough idea of how many layers you use usually?
somewhere between, I don't know, 5 and 15 usually.
Yeah, okay.
So this, I think, is a good... If I merge these two now, I don't have to though, like you can also keep it separate. But let's say that I undo that. And I'm just gonna add a new layer, which I also use as a clipping mask. But just to paint regularly, not in a layer mode. So now I can pick up color, and my painting is its own palette now. So at a certain point you can pick a lot of colors from your painting.
What do you do when you aren't drawing? Do you have any hobbies?
Breathe and sleep. Now I'm, staying with or hanging out with the family, of course. It's very important. But I also, because I have a job which is sitting on my ass, I need to work out. So I'm working out 3 to 4 times a week. Also because my back is, it needs it, or else I'm gonna be in big trouble. So training is sort of a hobby, but when I'm done painting a whole day for a client, I love to just sit down and paint for me. So painting is really a hobby as well. Drawing, painting, creating some new brushes, fiddle about in Procreate. So it's not just...
Discover things in Procreate that even we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finding bugs.
That too, yeah. Bug hunting.
Yeah.
You're living the dream then, if what you do for your work is also what you like to do in your spare time.
Yeah. I consider myself very lucky to be able to live off drawing. But it's taken... You have to put in the hours, you know. You have to... If you want to live of painting, you have to paint a lot. You have to get through your 10,000 hours and really get good at it. There's not really shortcuts when it comes to this. Just have to do it a lot.
Yeah, time and practice, effort.
Yeah.
Mike Henley wants to know, what's your favourite brush?
This one. The rull. The roll.
The new one?
Yeah. It has the bleed. Like the bleed part of it was a big thing for me. I'm just gonna... I'm not totally used to the new pen yet, so I'm gonna...
I was gonna say, yeah, have you...
Yeah, I'm gonna...
anything with the new...
I'm gonna set it to 2D grid instead, because then I'm gonna notice... I see that I've drawn a bit by accident, like around his face. But I can erase that. Yeah, it's on a separate layer. Ha! Then it's no problem. Yeah, man, sometimes when the double tap will just occur, even if you didn't tell it to occur.
With the Apple Pencil?
Yeah. Because it's in your hand and you're fiddling about with it, and then suddenly you have but it's on... Yeah, you've put on assist, but it's fairly quick to just turn it off again. Just double tap another time. Need to have some red in his beard. Yeah, starting to come together. Any more questions?
Any more questions, guys? What's your favorite thing to draw?
Asian urban areas. I think that's, yeah, definitely.
You have a lot of reference photos for those, from what I've seen.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's so like, it's all the detail in, but I guess cities anyway, you know, if it's an old city with all kinds of, you know, garbage cans and broken up tarmac and worn down buildings, and you know, it needs to, all the grit. I love grit. I love to paint sci-fi stuff. I love to draw characters. Yeah, I have a long list of things that I like. It's also nice to get out of your comfort zone every now and then, to be challenged.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's pain and good at the same time. So sometimes I have to draw something and I feel like, oh, man, this is not going the way that I want it to, and it's always, some paintings come hard, some come easy. And that's the way it should be, I think.
Do you have a least favorite thing to draw? Or any challenges?
I think beautiful women is difficult, at least if you don't have any reference, just to draw. Yeah, good looking women. It's to draw, and I guess maybe also good looking men. It's a little challenging. Just to get the legs. Actually, more maybe legs is the one that I struggle with the most. Just to get the position of them correct.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's challenging. You also saw in the beginning of this paint demo here that I erased the legs of the Viking here and then painted new ones. And that's exactly why.
Have you ever collaborated with other artists?
Well, I've worked with other artists on same projects because, you know, sometimes you need a bunch of artists working, doing concepts on the same thing, but I never drawn like part of an image and then an artist did the other part. Because if you put two artists in the same room and not have a leash on them, they will try to kill each other. That's how we just work. Nah, I'm kidding. We're all good friends. And I also love to sit and look at other artists drawing or time-lapse videos and stuff like that. It's just, I learned so much of watching other artists or tutorials and stuff. So it's just really, really inspiring, and you learn a lot from that.
What's the best advice you've received in all the time you've been drawing or painting?
Do thumbnails.
Yeah?
Always do thumbnails. Keep it small as far as you can. Like, you see, as long as I did this one, I haven't zoomed in beyond what you see right now, which makes it possible to go fairly far, fairly quickly. And I recommend to set your watch to 15 minutes to do thumbnails.
Okay.
And if you see that after 15 minutes that it's this is not going the way I planned, then start a new one.
Okay.
Then you only lost 15 minutes.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if you don't, you kind of can get sucked up into losing a lot of time, really.
Yeah. So keep it small until you cannot anymore. At least the 15 minutes, and then you can choose if you want to go beyond or not, you know, if it's good or if it's bad. And there was a teacher I had called Dan Boulouse, which was an animation teacher of mine on an animation course in Germany back in 2000 and 2001. And one morning, like, we were there every morning, and it was the same guys and girls meeting up, same sort of core bunch that really wanted to learn, that always met a bit early. So one morning he's a great animator, great teacher, and also worked on a lot of the Disney and Warner Brother movies. I think he lives in Hawaii, or is from Hawaii. So one morning he's arriving at the school, and the hardcore crew is already there waiting for him. And he's about to open the door to the classroom, and he puts the key in the lock, and he just stops. And then he's kind of half turned around, and he said, "Do you guys want to know the secret to great design?" And we were all like holding our breath and like, yes! Do thumbnails. And at the moment I was like, oh, come on. I thought he would give us like the
Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail, yeah. So I was maybe a little disappointed there and then, but it took me some years to actually like understood what he was on about. And now I totally understand. It's I'm saying the same thing. Do thumbnails.
I think that's like the origin story of all great pieces of advice, really, isn't it? That you get handed down these seemingly disappointing pieces of advice from people, and then years later you're like, you know what? Yes.
Yeah. Damn, the man was right. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it pretty much at that. If there are any last questions.
One last question here.
Yeah.
Have you ever done concept art for movies, and if so, which one are you proudest of?
Most of what I do is concept art for movies, so that's my main job. And which I'm most proud of. The one I actually did the most of artwork on was a movie called The Immortal Instruments. Harald Svart was the director, and I worked in Canada, in Toronto. So I worked on that for 3 months. So I did a bunch. So that was fun, and I could actually do concept art up until like the day before they were supposed to shoot it.
Yeah.
So I followed the production from pre-production to the last week of production, and did sort of what was needed from one day to the other, which was really cool. And I did the concept art for The 12th Man, which is also Harald Svart. That was kind of fun. That's on my art station as well, the sort of the World War II stuff.
Yeah.
Fairly realistic style. I also love doing stuff for animation, to do comic style. I love to do both, to do all kinds of styles, and not just be locked to a certain look. And also like to do both characters and environments, and try to keep a broad horizon in case of type of work. Makes it more fun. Yeah. I think that's it, people.
We have a request from Nate at Savage, our art director, guys. He has asked Nico if you wouldn't mind zooming in on the piece so that we can all see it in great detail.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna show you how loose it really is. So that's the thing with working zoomed out. The detail is a lot more kind of like suggestive.
Wow, yeah.
So this has taken about an hour to do, but an hour isn't that much, and I could still work another. Huh?
Especially when you're talking.
Yeah. So I could definitely still at least spend another work day on this to do all the detail, but the foundation is there, you know, the colors, the pose, the values. So now it's all about detail. Like you could deliver this to a client and he might be, yeah, cool, let's do that, or do another few of these, and then we'll see which one we put detail on. So it's good to keep it zoomed out, but yeah, so you get close, it's very playful.
Yeah.
And loose, and that's how I want it to be. And then, of course, at some point, you can go in and start to noodling with detail. But then it's gonna take time, you know, when you start to fickle in all the small stuff. So, yeah. I think it became a bit too broad. I'm gonna narrow this nose thing. It's gonna cover both his eyes. It's gonna be kind of bad for fighting.
You can't see what he's doing.
Yeah.
No. He really will drop his axe and it'll swing down and chop his leg off.
Yeah. While the fox on his shoulder is still not totally dead, so that's gonna bite him as well. Okay, and then
Awesome.
you need to always put a signature on your stuff. Like this and like that. There we go.
Nice.
Thank you so much, guys
Alright.
and girls.
Thanks heaps, Nico, for doing this live stream for us, and thanks to everyone who tuned in. This will be saved on our YouTube and Mob Crush channels afterwards as well, so you can come back and watch it as many times as you like. Yeah, if you've got any questions, you can message us on our social channels, or if you want to see some more of Nico's work, you can check him out at Nikolai Locketson on Instagram, or he's also got an art station with so many cool pieces on it that you should definitely check out.
Thank you.
We will see you all soon, hopefully. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.